When the semester break had arrived, I decided to visit my grandfather's house in the village. The old wooden house is located on the edge of the forest, far from the crowds. Even though I've been there many times, there's something that always makes me feel uncomfortable, especially when night falls. One night, when heavy rain poured down on the village, the electricity went out. Grandpa was asleep in his room, while I sat in the living room, accompanied only by candlelight. The sound of rain and thunder added to the tense atmosphere. Suddenly, a soft sound came from the kitchen, like a chair being moved. My heart beats faster. I tried to convince myself that it was just the sound of the wind. However, when the sound repeated itself, clearer and closer, I could no longer ignore it. With slow steps, I walked towards the kitchen. The candlelight swayed, casting strange shadows on the walls. Once in the kitchen, everything seemed normal. The chairs and tables were in their places. There were no signs of anything strange. However, when I turned around to go back to the living room, I saw him. In the corner of the kitchen stood a black figure, darker than the surrounding darkness. The figure had no face, just a solid-looking shadow with its head slightly tilted, as if watching me. I froze, unable to move. The candle in my hand suddenly went out, making everything pitch black. In the midst of the darkness, I heard the sound of footsteps, slow but sure, approaching me. With all my strength, I ran towards grandfather's room. I opened the door roughly and immediately got into the blanket beside him. Grandpa woke up and turned on the flashlight. Seeing my pale face, he just fell silent and pulled me into his arms.
You saw it too?
Grandpa asked in a trembling voice. Apparently, this figure had lived in this house for a long time. Grandpa said that since Grandma died, the shadow often appeared, as if waiting for something. It was raining non-stop as I pulled up to an old, weathered house on the edge of the forest. My grandfather's house. I haven't been here for years, since I was a child. The place looked more run down than I remembered. The paint was peeling, the roof was sagging, and the windows were dark and lifeless. But I have no choice. My car broke down a mile back, and this was the only shelter for several miles. I stepped onto the creaking porch, the wood groaning under my weight. The key was still hidden under the flower pot, just like Grandpa always kept it. I unlocked the door and pushed it open, the hinges squeaking in protest. The air inside was filled with dust and a slight smell of mold. I pressed the light button, but nothing happened. Of course, the power went out. I used my phone's flashlight to navigate the familiar yet frightening space. The furniture was covered in white cloth, giving the room a ghostly appearance. The grandfather clock in the corner stood still, its hands frozen at 3:17. I shivered, even though I told myself it was just the cold. I decided to go upstairs to find a bedroom to sleep. The stairs creaked every time I took a step, and shadows seemed to stretch and twist around me at the top of the stairs. I saw a door slightly ajar. I pushed it open and found myself in my grandfather's study. The room was exactly as I remembered, bookshelves filled with dusty tomes, a large oak desk, and an old leather chair. But something felt strange. The air was colder here, and there were faint whispers, like voices out of reach. I shook my head, trying to shake off the unease. I'm just tired, that's all. I turned to leave, but as I did, I noticed something on the table. A photo. I picked it up and saw it was a photo of me as a child, sitting on my grandfather's lap. But something was wrong. In the photo, my grandfather's eyes are black. There is absolutely no light. And behind us, in the shadows of the room, there was a figure, a tall, thin man with no face. I dropped the photo, my heart pounding. This had to be some kind of trick, a joke. But who would do something like that? I backed out of the room, my breath coming in short gasps. As I turned to run down the stairs, I heard it, a deep, guttural laugh coming from the study. I ran down the stairs, my feet slipping on the worn carpet. The front door was still open, and I ran out into the rain, not caring about the storm. I didn't stop until I reached my car, fumbling with the keys to get inside. As I left, I glanced back at the house. In the upstairs window, I saw a figure, a tall, thin man with no face, watching me go. I never went back to that house, but sometimes, late at night, I hear that laugh again, and I wonder if I'm really leaving.
It was when the winter semester break had arrived. I decided to stay at my grandpa's house in the village. His house was large and old, standing amidst a lush garden with tall trees that kept the place cool during the day. However, when night fell, the house turned into a cold and eerie place. On the first night, everything felt normal. Grandpa had gone to bed early, and I chose to watch TV in the living room. However, around 2 a.m, I felt thirsty. I walked to the kitchen, which was at the end of the hallway. As I walked through the hallway, I stopped in my tracks. I saw a shadowy figure at the end of the corridor, facing away from me. I thought it was Grandpa. Maybe he had woken up and needed a drink too. "Grandpa?" I called softly. The figure did not respond. Slowly, it walked into one of the empty rooms at the end of the hallway. I still tried to think rationally. Perhaps Grandpa was looking for something. But when I turned around, I was shocked to see Grandpa still sleeping in the living room, lightly snoring on the sofa. My heart pounded. If Grandpa was here, then who was at the end of the hallway? Hesitantly, I stepped back toward the hallway. The room at the end was an old bedroom that was always locked. The door was now slightly open. I gathered my courage and gently pushed the door open. Inside, the room was filled with old furniture and black and white photos hanging on the walls. But what made my skin crawl was one particular photo, a family portrait. And among them stood the same figure I had just seen, a man in old-fashioned clothes, standing in the corner with a blank, expressionless face. Suddenly, the door behind me slammed shut. I dashed toward it, but the hallway ahead now appeared much longer than before. Every step I took seemed to get me no closer to the living room. Behind me, I heard dragging footsteps, getting closer and heavier. My breathing became erratic, and I didn't dare look back. Just as my body was about to collapse, suddenly, a hand grabbed me. "Grandpa!" He looked at me with deep concern. "What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you never to go down this hallway in the middle of the night?" That night, Grandpa explained that the hallway was known as the Endless Hallway. He said that long ago a family member had died there, isolated in that old room due to a severe illness. His spirit was still trapped, wandering the same hallway trying to find a way out, but always stuck in the endless loop. Since that incident, I never dared to walk down that hallway at night again. The sound of those dragging footsteps could still be heard occasionally, a chilling reminder that the endless hallway still held a mystery yet to be unraveled.